He wanted to get this value for his practice that he had in his mind. He waited too long, and now there's this regret of, I'm not even able to sell my business for what I wanted to. I don't have the years to go travel because I'm 85, 86 years old.
The From Busy to Rich podcast helps financial advisors by providing strategies and insights that will not only change your life, but practice.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to From Busy to Rich. Really excited today. We've got a great guest in store for you. Had a chance to connect beforehand. Can't tell you how incredible he is, and excited to dive into more of his story. With me, as always, your host, Wes Young. Wes, great to see you today.
You too, brother.
Yeah, and if you would, I would love for you to introduce to our viewers and listeners, those of you who have the chance, you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the handsome guy that's clearly brought up the quality of the viewing component here for today. Very handsome young man. For those of you who don't get to see, you're missing out. Go to YouTube and check it out. But Wes, would you do a quick introduction? And I'd love to dive into where we're going, because he's a pretty unique background here in what he does.
Andrew, it's a real pleasure to have you on. And I would love it for our listeners if you could give us just like what is a day in the life of you? What lights you up? What are you doing right now? Because you're up to some really cool things, and I'd love for you to just give your version of this.
Yeah, day in the life. Well, first of all, it's great to be here and to meet both of you. I've heard just incredible things about the show and what you guys are producing for your audience, as well as just the people that you're interacting with. A day in the life for me is a very disciplined work from home entrepreneur, and this is probably my 6th or 7th business that I've started. It's the best one I've started thus far, which is great. So there's, like, on a day-to-day basis, what we get to do is we get to walk alongside, and one of the reasons I love it is we're walking alongside financial advisors that are the trusted guide of their clients for 30, 40 years. They're getting to the point where they're looking for a succession plan. Yesterday I was on the phone with a guy who's 66. He still runs 5 miles a day, and he thought it was a 5 to 10 years he wants to keep working. He just checked out to go on a vacation. He got back and he's like, maybe I only want to work for another 3 years, right? So we are coming alongside guys that have spent their career guiding American families to safeguard their wealth, spend time with their family, et cetera. We get to come alongside them in kind of the back nine of their career and say, what's a succession plan that is designed around what you're looking for? It's super different than the marketplace. Let me put my practice on Zillow and get a bunch of offers of people I don't know. So day to day, our team is popping into advisors' offices, hearing about how they run their business and helping design a succession plan that they're really excited about.
That's fun, man. What do you see in? I'm sure there's a broad landscape of the different kinds of personality types that you're meeting with. Are there like levels, and you just know this one's in this level, this one's in this level right now, and like it's almost like the Matrix when you're like you need to take this pill, and then you can see more and actually know what exists out here. What are you walking through?
Some advisors that we meet with are simply looking for information. There's a guy that we worked with. I actually met him from a podcast. I was a guest on his podcast. He's got great practice. He's on the East Coast. 350, 400 billion in AUM, awesome team. And he starts going through our X-ray process to hear about the value of his business, and he started by saying, I don't think this will go anywhere, but let's gather some info, right? And so that's kind of gate one is, I don't know what I don't know. Let's see what's out there. I have no idea what the value of my business is or how these deals are structured. There's either thanks for the info, I'm not ready yet path, or there's, wow, I thought that this was years away, and now I'm realizing I kind of want to do something, right? Whether it's a full sale, a minority sale, good driver, bad car, right? I'm great at what I do. I don't love running a business. Let's plug into a platform. So like the first level is like, I don't know what I don't know. Let's get some information from someone that eats and breathes and sleeps this every day. Then there's this, I always think like there has to be like wonder and intrigue prior to knowledge. If I just tell someone, hey, here's the landscape and here's everything that you could get, but you're not at a place where you're ready to do that, maybe you're, for one reason or another, there has to start with this intriguement of like, what's possible, or maybe I do want to make a change that eventually will lead to the knowledge and ultimately something happening. But if I just start with pumping someone full of knowledge, a lot of times it's not the right time. And so our process is slow, and it starts with like, Wes, what are you looking for? Right? Tell me about your business. How's it running? What are the pain points? Like, we were meeting with a group that's in like Kentucky or Kansas, like the flyover states, US. Three partners, one of them's in their early 80s and two other guys are in early 60s. And we ended up not breaking up with them, but basically saying, I can't help you. Like, you guys have a great thing going. You don't need a succession plan. You have that in house. You don't really need compliance support. You got that. And so it really starts with kind of getting to know the advisor and seeing, where are you at? Where can we help? And sometimes we can't help, which is totally fine.
When you go and let's say it's a great conversation where we want to take a look under the hood. We want to say what's going on here. Can you tell me about that X-ray process? That because I think this is good for an advisor, no matter what stage of the business they are, to just be aware of what do we have going on. What's the if I did want to sell, what are the things that are holes? And because even if I can plug those holes, maybe I don't want to sell anymore. If I make it right.
To take a step back, by AUM, right? We're redesigning how succession planning and transactions happen in the space, right? If I'm in an elevator, somebody says, Andrew, what do you do? I say, I'm a financial matchmaker, right? We're a Yenta. So we work with a bunch of different buyers all over the country of different sizes. We'll then match those with sell-side advisors or, sunsetting advisors that want to do a full sale, minority, what have you. We're fully compensated by the buyers if a deal happens, which allows us to be completely service oriented to the sell side business owner, right? It starts with, like, we call it the XO, and then 1, 2, and 3. So the XO call is 30 minutes. What are you looking to do? Like, what's the goal? Like, what are we here for, right? Why'd you took a cold call from one of our sales guys. You're on a meeting with strangers. Why are you here, kind of thing, right? From there, we go into the X-ray, like the meat of the X-ray, which is the true value report, evaluation of the business, not a pinpoint number, but a range, right? Some people hear Johnny sold his practice for 12 times EBITDA. I should get that. It's like, well, his practice was 8 times larger than yours. So that's not going to work, right? So it's like, where's the fair value of your practice? And a layer deeper, what are the revenue drivers of the business and how's it set up? What's your genesis story? All of that. So it's kind of the full hour of the first call. Then we go into, like, look, money aside, your business aside, the culture is a really fluffy word, but it's super important. So the second call is all about the legacy matchmaker. It's like, who do I want to pass the baton to? From technology, from geography, from culture. Like, I hate PE or I really like PE. Like, what are all of the non-monetary items that for you, if you met a potential partner, you would like, right? What are the red flags, or, hey, this would be actually a great fit? That's the second call. And the third is all about structuring the deal. Wes, what's a deal that you would say yes to? Hey, I want everything up front. Okay. Well, do you understand that that's way more risk for a buyer? And so if I was buying your business and it was all up front, I'd offer you way less money than if you said, hey, pay me out over 5 years. And so it's all of these mechanics of, we know what the business is worth. We know the type of firm that you want to sell to or partner with. How do we structure a deal, right? At the end of that, one of our team says, Wes, would you trust us enough to make an introduction? I'm not sending you an invoice for our time. I'm not even forcing you into exclusivity, which our legal team was like, you guys are crazy, but I don't want anybody to get married at the end of a shotgun. And so, yeah, I trust you to make an introduction, and we'll set up a few first dates, right, with firms that fit the 3.5 hours that we've just discussed would be an ideal plan for you. We have folks go through that lead to transactions, obviously. We also have folks that say, thank you so much. You asked me questions that I have not set the time aside to ask myself. I'm not ready, or I need to make some changes over the next 18 months and then I'll be ready. So that's why I love that we're fully comped by the buyers, is because it allows us to be really authentic listeners with the sell side advisor and figure out what are you actually looking for and what's additive and maybe what's not.
I've noticed this in a couple. We've bought a practice, and that one's gone great. And he's 58. Gordon's still got a long runway. I knew him for 20 years before that, and he wanted to not just he wanted structure, organization, and we're really good at structure, organization, and doing only the thing that he does best, which is, like, we call him the human Lego, right? He's goes and connects to everybody around him and connects people around him. Um, and you were mentioning that the culture side. Justin and I talk about all the time. Justin, you want to weigh in on this? Um, for us, whether it's a client or whether it's a team member, coachability is massively important to us, where they will be willing to be observed, be willing to receive feedback and do something about it. You don't apply the feedback, you're not coachable. Justin, any thoughts on that? And I'd love to get your perspective on this as well, Andrew.
Yeah, it's ironic. We were just talking about this at Strategic Coach, another program that we're a part of for continued development with other entrepreneurs. If you're not familiar with it, highly, highly recommend go check it out. But the point of how important that underlying component is and how culture, especially as you grow, really drives the overall experience, both internally and externally, and how there has to be alignment. And so to Wes's point, really boiling it down to what does that come back to? For us, there's a degree of mutual respect, and then Wes already mentioned coachability, and then what are those underlying components? And so I'm curious for you, Andrew, when you guys are looking for the matches and you're driving all these components, and then in light of just where the industry is as a whole, I'm curious, just what are you finding in terms of trends? Because they talk about like great wealth transfer, and then you see less and less advisors within the industry. What are you guys seeing as the evolution in that? And what's like the overarching culture that you're seeing a shift in? And then what's actually transpiring down on the ground for you guys?
The underlying shift is that, was it 10,000 people in the US turn 65 every day? It's no secret that there are, in every industry, roofing, plumbing, advisory, mechanics, there are business owners that are baby boomers that are turning 65 that want to retire that don't have someone to buy the business. That's in all industries, right? In the advisory space, it's also true. There's a lot of different facts. It's 10 trillion is going to transition over the next 10 years. It's 45% of all advisors are going to be out of the business in 10 years. Whatever it is, it's a huge number. And so there are a ton of independent wealth advisors that have guided families for 35 years that are solopreneurs, which is great. It's a lifestyle practice. They have maybe an assistant and they work out of their house or a WeWork. Great. Who's going to take it over? And so that is the landscape. We talk about this internally of like, my partner calls it the silver tsunami. And, in my mind, it's less of like a one wave. I used to live in Newport Beach and do longboard surfing. Like, waves come in sets of 3 or 4. I feel like this first wave is crashing and there are 2 or 3 more behind it over the next 10, 12 years. So the landscape is business owners are retiring and don't have a Gen 2 to take it over. It's true in all industries. It's also true in advisory space. A layer deeper, what makes a match a good fit? It is almost never money as items 1 or 2. Fair value is fair value, right? If I get a little over fair value, great. For me, as a seller, it's about culture. My clients have come to be accustomed to who I am, whether we're working with a woman that's totally focused on ESG, social responsibly investing. Okay, great. So she wants the person that takes over her practice to share that belief system because that's what her clients are accustomed to. I mean, that's insert the style. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be, I'm a stock picker, or I trade options for my clients. I want my successor to be able to have that skill. So a lot of like culture comes to finding a mini me from a seller's perspective, everybody says, yes, I want fair value for my practice. But really what they're looking for is someone to take over their business that does as good or better than them. However they see that as, right? If I believe that picking individual stocks is the only way to really bring value to my clients, which personally I disagree with. But if that's what an advisor thinks, then he doesn't want to sell his business to a modeled portfolio sort of buyer. And so part of it comes down to like, which is why I think the landscape is fundamentally broken, which is why we've built this company. Because if I'm just looking at revenue, clients, and EBITDA margin, and I'm going, great, let me offer, a check to this business. That's that's all money focused, right? And money's number 4 or 5 on the list of top 5. And so it really comes down to peeling back the advisor and saying what is important to you, and then finding a firm that can align with that. From a buying perspective, it really becomes active listening, right? A great wealth advisor that maybe has a bunch of high net worth clients isn't necessarily always a great buyer, because it's this active listening skill. It's meeting an advisor where it is. And so if I was to ask a bunch of wealth firms who wants to be a buyer of businesses, everybody's hands go up, right? Who of them are great at doing it? There's far less, because it's about listening to what a seller's trying to accomplish and saying, yes, I can do that. Or, Steve, you're a great guy, but we're fundamentally different on how we view wealth management providing for clients.
Yeah, I really like that insight. I was just going to say, I think that's pivotal because, especially for those of you listening, and Andrew, some more perspective, the bulk of our listeners are advisors in this space. And so just understanding that when you come into this business, it's a grind, and you can build yourself into just a business of grinding. And that's part of what we teach is, how can you transition that into more of a planning component, true holistic planning. But that focus of, at some point you need to start having the conversations, if you haven't already, about defining your culture, about defining those intangible things, because you're trying to build a book of business, and as these economic drivers, and those are critically important in terms of it keeps the lights on, it keeps people paid. Those things don't go away. It's not unrealistic or untrue, but there is this other component of you've been defining yourself whether you realize it or not. So the point is spending some time on the design is equally important, especially from what I'm hearing you say, is about your future planning as well. Not just what type of clients am I taking in, but what type of potential partners, or where's this going at some point in the future. So I really appreciate that.
I was thinking about this. Andrew, I don't know if you've ever listened to or followed Arthur Brooks at all. He is a behavioral psychologist. I think he's got a master's in neurology as well. I mean, just a brilliant guy, but he speaks English, which I appreciate because you can understand what he says. Does some really cool stuff in the business world. He teaches a 3-year class at Harvard on the art and science of happiness. That has a 3-year waiting list for this class. And he always says, these young adults, he said, they're very smart, of course. They're high IQ. He says, oftentimes they're a little low wisdom. And he said he asked the question right at the front of the class. He said, so one thing all of us want, and this is like nobody's disagreeing with this statement, is all of us want to be happier. I don't care if you're not happy, you want to be happier. If you're happy, you want to be happier. And he says, so what is it? What is happiness? Define it. And that's a little tougher. They start trying to define it. And he said, generally, it kind of goes here. He said, they say, well, it's what I feel. It's what I feel when I'm with the people I love or doing the thing I enjoy. And he lets him go for a while. And he's like, oh, those are beautiful definitions. They're all wrong. He said, all of you are incorrect. He said, your feelings come from the limbic brain developed over thousands of years, he said, or millions of years. And he said, it's kind of like they're an indicator of happiness. They can be, but it's like if you smell the turkey cooking at Thanksgiving, you feel kind of happy, but you would never trade it for eating the turkey, right? So it's a completely different thing. So he breaks it down. He's got a great way he does it to these macronutrients of happiness. And The third one is the one I'm curious of your findings on this, because he calls it, to be truly happy, you've got to have these three macronutrients. Like if you're going to get in good shape, you track macros. He said it's enjoyment, it's satisfaction, and it's meaning. Enjoyment is really made up of people, pleasure, and memories. And so if we, got off our Zoom here and all got in the closet and drank a bottle of wine by ourselves, we'd have some pleasure, we would. But there'd be no people and there'd be no memories, right? And but if we all went to dinner and we shared a nice bottle over a great meal and had great discussion and dialogue, we'd have all three. Then you have satisfaction. This one's fascinating just because you only get satisfaction by overcoming hard things. And I think that the second and the third are going to be connected, because the most satisfying things in all of our lives, you probably did something hard. Probably had to maybe go through a little pain, maybe suffer. Now, I mean, necessary. I think there's unnecessary suffering as well. But he said you can be satisfied, but you can't keep satisfaction. He said you once you hit it, then there's another thing. It's kind of like the hedonic treadmill, right? It's like, once I get this, then I'm like, well, look over there. There's got to be this. And the last one is meaning. And meaning is about faith, family, friends, and work that matters to others. So faith is the substance of thing I was hoping for, the evidence of things I've not yet seen. It's also kind of combined with this idea of, this is a big world. I get to play a role in it, but I am not the world. Because otherwise you get really unhappy. But that energy that you get, that's what gives you the energy to do hard things. When you won't trade what I could have, what I want ultimately for what I could get immediately, because I can see this thing that doesn't yet exist that I'm moving towards, and it's willing to carry the suffering or this to get me that satisfaction by overcoming it. And then you've got family, friends. You're never going to be happier than the quality of your relationships. I don't care how much money you have, what you accomplish. And then meaning. And the meaning part is really the crux of my question. I wanted to give you that background on it. So, I think C.S. Lewis said the worse than having to get up and go to work on Monday because people depend on you is having no one depend on you on Monday. And I was just curious, in all these things you've done, one, does that come up in the conversation? If these are grinders and they've been doing it a long time, and it's like, I can't wait not to do this, but it's like, yeah, what are you going to do with all your energy? And how have you seen it play out? I'm just curious on all this.
Wes, that's a beautiful backstory. I'm glad I wrote that down because those are great definitions. What sticks out to me before I answer the question, satisfaction of overcoming hard things, is so true. And it's the old, you're making an avatar of yourself and you want them to be of high moral character and, resilience. And it's like, okay, so what do? You put that person through trials and temptations and hard things. And I've never heard it said so succinctly. I love that. Meaning is like so core to something happening, because as in like a transaction or a partnership, particularly when selling the business, I'm ready to go. I'm on the back nine. I got a couple years left. Like, a lot of folks will get cold feet because who am I outside of this? And it's this identity of like, I have been bringing value to my family and friends for 30 years. After I sell, like, what am I to the world? Like, what value do I bring? And you know what? Actually, I can't fish. We had a transaction like this. A year went by and he said, actually, I am ready. And it closed, I don't know, a couple months ago. But it was last year, a gentleman that was in the panhandle area of near Destin, went through our process, wanted to sell the practice. He kept saying famously, I know what enough is financially. I'm ready to kind of cash the chips in. Goes on a bunch of first dates with buyers, picks one that he likes, gets to due diligence, gets an LOI in front of them. And then he's like, what am I going to do? Fish 5 days a week? And he's an avid fisherman. Like, he goes 100 miles offshore in his little boat. And he said, and I'm like, I get it, Robert. Like, you can't fish 5 days a week. And so what we ended up doing from hearing that is a part of our process after the X-ray and someone graduates, we take all of the materials that we've kind of worked through and we call it the succession blueprint. It's probably a 30-page printed document that we bind and send to people. And yes, it recaps who the ideal partner is, but it also goes into like further questions of what's the legacy that you want to leave. Write a letter to your successor. What are the 3 enduring values that you want to outlast you? Literally yesterday, I was on the phone with someone that got cold feet, and he's like, I'm not ready yet. And I said, okay, totally fine. His name was Tony. I said, Tony, let's put a pin in this till early next year. And your homework is to think about, what do you actually want to do? He's like, I want to travel. I said, great. Where do you want to travel? For how long? Like, he was also an avid runner. I said, do you want to run across Malta? Like, do you want to run the Camino? Like, what are the goals? It's not just, I'm going to sell my business and I'm going to travel. It's like not good enough, right? Where's the business plan for, hey, I want to sell my business and I want to get really involved in charitable work? Good start, go deeper, right? Which charity? Well, these two. Okay, well, what do you want to do with them? Well, I'd like to do this and that. What's the time? Like, what's the business plan for the third act? That's where we see successful transitions where a year later they're not going, what the heck did I do? Who am I? I regret this, not from monetary standpoint, but from my life. Like, my life has no meaning anymore. It's kind of like at a 4th of July cookout, I'm not gonna think about my taxes. That's a later thing. It's like a yucky thing that's in the future. A lot of folks treat this that same way. I'll think about it when I'll sleep when I'm dead. My dad would always say that. I'll think about retirement when I get there. And then they get there and they're like, crap, who am I? What am I gonna do? And so it's about kind of like dreaming and allowing yourself the space. This guy, he took the succession blueprint on a plane, and he said, usually I don't have like spend time on this, but I got nothing else to do. I didn't bring a book. And so he's actually taking the time to go through the blueprint and ask himself, what do I really want to do with my life? Right? What do I want to be when I grow up? I've sold my business. What's important to me? The meaning is a huge piece of this. And the workaholic, I think, can be glorified in the American culture. Oh, I work all day and I sleep and I get up and I do it again. It's like, okay, well, how's that working out for you? And when it gets to the end of your career, there's a gentleman, sad story, 85 years old in Florida, wanted to sell his business and wanted this big number. Clients kept passing away. We worked with him for about 6 months and we finally cut him loose because I'm like, I can't help you. He started with probably 26 million. 6 months later, he was at about 18 million because clients had died. Their children were in their 60s looking at this 85-year-old advisor going, no, I'm not keeping the money with you. Like, what are you, crazy? He wanted to get this value for his practice that he had in his mind. He waited too long. And now there's this regret of, I'm not even able to sell my business for what I wanted to. And I don't have the years to go travel because I'm 85, 86 years old. It's a sad story, but people just work. It's the easy thing to spend my time, work. I love St. Benedict. It's like prayer and work. Like, those are two very admirable things. But also, who are you outside of your career is something that people need to spend more time thinking about.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to From Busy to Rich. If you're listening and something sparks a question or you just want to explore these ideas further, visit us at wesyounglive.com or email us at info@wesyounglive.com. You'll find free resources, tools, and ways to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
That's so good, man. And the stories, I think, are powerful, especially in the seat that you sit in, because people don't do that, right? I've got a good friend of mine, John Acuff. He's written several great books, but in one of them, he says, make tomorrow easy today. Make tomorrow easy today. And he gets some funny like anecdotes in it, but he said, I don't ever know if you guys have this, but I do. I've got a nighttime Wes and I've got a morning Wes. these guys often in my life have been in such opposite ends of what they think the thing to do is. And nighttime Wes is not kind sometimes to morning Wes. And it's like, hey, while I'm in morning Wes mode, can I do some things to set up nighttime Wes to like be prepared so that we have a great life, that we're doing the things that are most important instead of staying up and watching the 3 extra, shows on Netflix or working another hour on the AI project I'm excited about or whatever it is when you can't think anyway. And, I may know a guy who does that, but, is there is there something that I can do now when I'm clear and I'm not in nighttime West mode to help him? And then that nighttime West becomes my friend, that we're on the same page. When I think about this stuff that you do, you're seeing these advisors, they're in all these different stages. And do you is there if you were to give, as we kind of lay in the plane here on this, if you were to give that advisor, and maybe we take it in 3 different stages here. Let's say you take the 35-year-old advisor first. He's got established practice, things are going pretty well, still high energy, like maybe he even likes the grind still. And then you've got the guy who's 45, and then you've got the guy who's 55, and you've got the guy that's 65. What would you say are good things for them to make the 45-year-old version, the current 25-year-old version could make the 35-year-old version a much better person, a much better day. They make to essentially make tomorrow easy today. What can they do? And let's kind of walk through those.
It's a great question. Yeah, to recap, the 35-year-old is nighttime Wes, and the 45-year-old is daytime Wes, right? It's basically what you're saying. How I set myself up for the next. For the 35-year-old that's in this business, I would say prioritize fee-based relationships and exercise skills in tax planning, estate planning, or holistic planning, right? Um, your life will be much better when you're not waiting for the next commission check or big insurance policy to hit. Fee-based AUM will benefit you at every stage into the future, right? The 45, and the other thing I'd say to the 35-year-old is um, stop looking for an elevator. Just walk up the stairs, do the hard work. It's not going to be one giant $50 million account. It's going to be $50 million accounts. Do the work, go up one stair at a time. Don't look for the elevator and prioritize fee-based AUM. For the 45-year-old, I would say begin to standardize your processes and what is your culture. Does everything live in your brain? If everything lives in your brain at 45, by the time you're 55, you will probably have fewer staff, maybe more staff, but like your business will be more complex. You will have more moving parts, more clients. If you are the linchpin at 45, your goal at 55 should be able to take a week or two off and your phone doesn't ring, right? Everybody knows what to do. A new client comes in, it's their birthday, we do this, they need money out of their account. Like, get everything out of your brain. At 35, it's probably just you and maybe an assistant. So you're still developing that stuff. But at 45, nighttime Wes should be creating SOPs so that morning 55-year-old Wes can have a team that runs his operation the way he would without him, right? I think that's the biggest thing to build over that 10-year, that bridge is standard processes and a culture. Who are we? Why do clients stay with us? It's one of the questions we always ask advisors is like, Wes, there are a bazillion financial advisors out there. Why are your clients with you? And they say, oh, well, mainly it's trust, right? Or sometimes it's the returns, but mainly it's trust and relationship. So how are you standardizing that process? The 55-year-old leading to 65. I think 65, if you've done everything right, you've grown significantly and you've prioritized AUM, is a perfect time to pull the ripcord, whether it's 3 years prior or it's at 65. You do, 2 or 3 year buyout. Obviously, attrition is going to be a part of that, or retention. So by 68, you're fully out, you're paid out. Great. Go live your life, travel the world, take a cruise with your wife, like enjoy it. 55 to 65 is about setting up the business to be an enterprise practice. People want to buy, yes, recurring revenue, but they want to buy systems that are not in your brain, a team. The biggest thing that people miss is they get, I don't want to say lazy, but like I've known these clients for 30 years. Let's just keep riding it out. Everybody's getting older. And one of the things it's really hard to catch up on is the average age of your practice. If the average age of my practice is 75 years old versus 55 years old, the multiple I'm going to garner is very different. That takes time to build a bridge to the next generation. Hey, Susan, John, I know Steven's 15 years old. Happy to do a pro bono account with him. Great. Like having the bridge to the next generation takes a lot of time. That's what I would focus on from 55 to 65 is getting the next gen for all of your big accounts. And then hopefully you're getting some younger like entrepreneurs, business owners, things like that. Because at 65, if your business is prioritized with fee-based, it's running not all just through you, there's standardized process, and you've got a bridge to the next generation, you're going to demand a best in class multiple. You're going to be able to structure a deal with someone that you really like, and then you're going to have a great life and enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? Like that's what I would set up. Like, how does the 65-year-old get to be in a place where they go, man, I've really crushed it and I'm selling for best in class multiple. I'm happy. They've done all of that over the previous 30 years.
Man, that's awesome. I have one more question for you. Just curious, because based on like our practice, we're a fee-based financial planning company. So we charge annual retainer fees separate from asset management fees. We manage a lot of money and get paid asset management fees as well. And then of course there's always with the type of work we do, the the commission and pops that things that come from that. Do you see in the when in this world, if you've got a practice like that that has all three, so not just AUM and not certainly not just revenue from commission, but also has the say a steady recurring, very high retainer model. Do you just come across that much? I'm just personally curious about this.
It's less often. To have the trifecta, as I call it, I think is much more rare than I'm fee based and I have some trails or commissions. That's more common. To have just a commission based practice is pretty dead. I think everybody has woken up and smelled the coffee over the last 20 years. And so there's a lot of this mix. What I see, so depending on the size of your practice in AUM, it's kind of like the multiples are there's the revenue multiple ladder and there's the EBITDA multiple ladder. And between the rungs, between 100 and 150 million of AUM, there's like a standard range of multiples for revenue and for EBITDA, right? So maybe it's 3.2, 3.5, 3.8 between these rungs. I get to the next rung, it's a new set. And your low, medium, high on those multiples depends on average age of household, client concentration, all those things, right? So those will apply to the fee-based model. Here's the value of that recurring fee-based advisory business. Trails are typically valued at like 0.7 times to a generous 1 times revenue. Sometimes people can negotiate where the trail fee is applied at the same multiple as the fee-based AUM. It's more rare, doesn't happen that often. Call it a 1x on the fee-based trail stuff. The recurring like we'll call it planning fees. It's a retainer model sort of thing. It's less often lumped into the advisory stuff. If I was a buyer, what I would value that stuff at is I basically say these are super sticky clients. That shows me that they're valuing you, your clients value you for far more than just the returns that you're giving them. So like, yes, it's revenue that is going to be applied at some multiple, right? More so for me as a buyer, my buyer hat on, I'm saying this is a lower risk practice. Attrition will be lower because these guys are really bought in. I got to make sure I keep Wes involved for a few years, but these clients love him. They're not just paying him a 1%. They're paying him also for his brain, his opinions, etc. So with my buyer hat on, I see that practice as lower risk as compared to the same one without that advisory sort of stuff. Does that answer the question?
So basically, you're telling me I should sell right now because we've got the trifecta. I don't know what I do with my hands and my time if I wasn't doing this, but
It goes back to the third act, right? Like, what are you going to do?
well, I do think there is this idea too, and I know we're wrapping here of at some point, and you mentioned it a little. It's like if you don't switch to out, grow out, not up. If you are the linchpin, as you said, one, you're not gonna like it as much at some point. Like when you're 40 or younger, grinding for a bit is almost good. You should. I talked to a guy the other day, and he's like, "Well, tell me about your schedule." I said, "You shouldn't do it like I do. You're 27 years old. You should run hard, fast, learn." Um, but then at some point, and Arthur Brooks actually writes on this too. His book's From Strength to Strength. That you go through these mental curves, the fluid intelligence curve, and then the crystallized intelligence curve in your life. Fluid intelligence, you can run and you can absorb a lot. Then you hit somewhere after 40, and you're neurologically you actually change. Like your brain works different. You are very good at that point at like you have all the if you've done the work, you've got like this storeroom of knowledge and books you've read and things can happen that you can go, well, hold on, let me send my librarian back in my brain to go figure this out. Maybe a slow one, it may take her a while to get there, but it's like we should actually just do this, and you're much better. He always calls it go from cowboy to coach. Like you begin the process of bringing others around you, and you are not growing through you anymore because we're all finite. You can only handle so many people anyway. But even moving the other direction before they exit, um, I see as a tremendous value. I mean, Justin's been here for 5 years, and we have other advisory team members, and it's where we come into our meetings, and it's, hey, here's our team, instead of it's just me, or instead of it's just Justin, and the relational transfer is always happening from the very start to where they're looking at all of us there. Do you see like people intentionally transitioning that stuff often? And are there people that like this is the game they play and they play it really well? If you want to learn more about it, you can. Do you guys work with people on that stuff?
I mean, look, it's two different kind of ways to build a business. One person says, I want to build a super high margin business. And so I'm going to be a lean, mean shop. I'm going to outsource my CIO, my technology, etc. Maybe I have a couple support staff. That's how I run it. The other, and like you've got 55, 60% margin, maybe more on your business. The other advisor says, I want a team. I want the next gen. I want to be able to pass off the relationships. That's a much different, it can be the same amount of AUM. In fact, we're working with two groups right now. They're going through the X-ray process. Almost exact size AUM, built their practices very differently. One is very human capital focused, systems, teams, CFPs, young guys. The other one is like lean and mean, super high margin. It's not right or wrong, they're just different. So, yes, I think that is an ideal situation to have, you know, Justin and Steven and John as the relationship manager that, yeah, Wes, you come in, you help close the client, you're there on the annuals, but the clients are getting used to the team. So that if you fade into the background, a buyer says, there's probably going to be way less attrition here because they're used to everybody else that's staying around. It makes it easier from a buyer to say, huh, less risk here, right? The solo guy that has a bunch of clients, the match of new personnel is super, super important because if I bring someone in that's this New Yorker and pinstripe soup, it's a very different vibe than you are, Wes. And so the clients might maybe just as good, if not better, at managing money than you. But now I'm having to like try and replace trust and relationship at the same time as keeping the recurring revenue that the buyer, just bought. So I think there's the mix of both is probably ideal. A father-son team, I've got a junior, someone, even if it's an assistant that plans to stay on for a couple of years, having a face that remains steady over the transition period is always leads to lower amount of attrition, higher retention, which everybody wins with.
Last question for you, brother, and I appreciate your time today so much. This has been a lot of fun. What about internal buyers? Like you got a team that's been with you a long time that and people that are truly need to be partners. How often is that happening? And is that something you guys try and get involved in at all, or you just come across it?
We have those folks run through the X-ray process because it's our cold callers. They make 1,000 calls. It's 350 a day, so whatever that counts to a week. They're talking to a lot of people, and they're booking people, different advisors in different situations. Two stories for you. One, it's a father-son team, 60, 70 million in the Southeast. Dad wants to retire. He's that has this number in mind for his practice, which is a little bit, in my opinion, high, and some buyers, right? But he wants to be bought out. Son's in the business. Son owns like 20%. He met with a few, they went through the X-ray. He met with a few buyers. One of the buyers said, look, why don't you, son, go find a loan, pay your dad out, join my platform, get a 90% payout. I'll take all of the unfun things off your plate. The son's like 32 years old. He's like, you're going to make way more money holding this business for the next 30 years than if I was to buy your dad out. And so that's one situation where son goes to, we have some lending partners. Live Oak is kind of the beast in the space, not the best rates, but whatever. That's why you're the big dog. You go to them, you get a loan, you buy out your dad, you join a platform, or you just keep doing it. That works as well, right? Or it's the team. You can bring an ESOP in. You kind of have to be at a certain level of revenue for an ESOP to make sense because they're a fairly expensive solution to provide. Another one that we have seen is an advisor 64, 65, a bunch of 25 to 29-year-olds under them, like 4 or 5. They're all CFPs. They're sharks. They're awesome. He's like, one, they don't have the cash to buy me out, and they're not really ready. Like they're Gen 3, I need a Gen 2. And so, but he's made promises and given equity to his Gen 3 guys. He's doing a transaction where he's selling all of his business, but the buyer is allowing those minority partners, the junior guys, to maintain their percentage ownership in the business, right? So it can be structured a few different ways. A lot of times it's messy when you don't bring in any outside party because junior doesn't usually have the cash to buy you out. Maybe he does and you fade into the background, but he's used to asking you for help on all these things. Like sometimes like changing a change of scenery, a mix it up is actually beneficial so that it's not here's your money, you're retired, but it didn't go the way that we expected. We do work with those. They're a little bit more tricky, but again, I think part of it comes back to, which is why I love the X-ray process, is because it's really slow and it's like, what do you want? Like, what does your team want? Like, so it has to be a very defined plan. If I walk into a bakery and I say, I want a sweet treat, it's like, okay, well, I could do a lot of things. Like, what do you want, right? If I walk in and I say, I want an ice cream cake that's 3 layers with white frosting, cherry, and sprinkles, a buyer can do that. If as a seller, you walk into a buyer and you go, I want a deal, and they say, well, what do you want? And you're like, I don't really know. It's akin to walking into a bakery saying, I want the best sweet treat you have. It's like, there needs to be a little bit of structure or plan around this is what I'm looking for. And that's what we're helping people discover.
Yeah, it's almost like you're like a sommelier is the way I kind of see it, whereas because they don't know what they want. And they need this iterative design with people who have, seen what the options are, what it's been like in each section, and you taking them through that. So if there's people out there listening today, and we're going to link to all your stuff, but if you just, what is the best way for people to get in contact with you so they can say, man, here's my situation. What would this be like? Is there a great way to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all over LinkedIn, Andrew Mirolli. My email is Andrew at byaum. That's our website, byaum.com. There's a cell phone number on there. Feel free to reach out. You can ping me on LinkedIn, and I'll see that pretty quickly, or just email me.
Man, I've enjoyed our time. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure. No, it's been great. My last piece of advice to everyone would be don't delay thinking about your taxes when you're at the 4th of July party. Think about what do you want to do after you finish
Thanks
the
for tuning in
business.
to From
Put
Busy
some
to
time and thought
Rich.
into that.
If something
Love
in
it, man.
today's
Make tomorrow
episode
easy
sparked an
today.
idea or
Love
hit
it.
a
Let's do
nerve,
it.
don't keep it to yourself. Follow the show, share it with a friend, and let's keep building a community of advisors who want more. You can find more resources, tools, and free content at wesyounglive.com. We'll see you back here next time for more real conversations about building the life and business you really want.